Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to class. Today we're going to be continuing our math section on shapes and the angles and lines that make up a shape. And can anybody tell me what shapes we reviewed yesterday in class? The square and triangle, you guys are correct. What angles do the squares contain? Right angles. And how many right angles are in a square? 4, you are correct. What degree makes up a right angle? 90 degrees is also correct. So as we're continuing our lesson, we're going to be adding in a couple more shapes and terms, and we're going to be making our paper craft, which is known as origami, that will contain shapes and terms that we have covered today in class as well as yesterday in class. So before we begin, we'll cover the definition of origami for those who don't already know. Origami is known as the Japanese art of paper folding. It's a transformation from a flat piece of paper, such as the one we'll be using today, and we will be constructing it into a three-dimensional shape, such as the wonderful whale that we will be making today. Before we begin, we'll be covering a couple more shapes, so we will be adding the definitions to our vocabulary, and the shapes that we already know, such as the square and the triangle, will be more of a review, but then the quadrilateral and scalene triangle will be new to you guys today. So pay attention to the definitions, and we'll record them in our notebooks. For the start, we'll do quadrilateral, and that is any figure that has 4 sides. So as you can see, there's a square and a diamond. And then there's also some funky shapes that we're not used to in everyday math, such as this one, but they're still classified as a quadrilateral because they have 4 sides. And angles really don't make a difference to quadrilaterals because as you can see, this square has 4 right angles measuring 90. But this one, however, doesn't have any known angles that we're aware of at the moment. Our next term is a square, and this is still review, so you guys should know this one. And a square is a quadrilateral that has 4 right angles and 4 congruent sides. As you guys already told me, the right angles are the 90-degree measurements that are in the corners, and there are 4 of them. And then there are also the 4 equal sides. Our next one is the triangle, which is still a review for you guys, and that is any figure that has 3 sides. So as you can see, there are 3 sides, but no 90-degree angles known as right angles that the square contains. Next, we're going to be learning the scalene triangle. And the scalene triangle is a triangle that has no sides that are the same lengths. So as you can see in the picture, these 2 sides look like they might be the same, but they really aren't. And then this third side is obviously not the same as these 2. And so that qualifies it as a scalene triangle since they are not the same length. Now we're going to go over a couple terms before we begin. And the terms are line of symmetry and congruent. And some of you may already know line of symmetry. We've talked about it before, but we haven't actually discussed the definition. The definition of line of symmetry is a line that divides 2 halves into matching parts. So as you can see in these shapes, such as the square and the circle that you guys are already familiar with, the square and the circle are divided in half with an imaginary line, but when you fold it in half, fold it over the line of symmetry, the parts line up and it looks as if it's one. But square and circles aren't the only shapes that have line of symmetries. There are also the other shapes that you guys are familiar with that can have line of symmetry. And sometimes the shapes don't always have to be connected for them to have a line of symmetry, such as this one, where they aren't connected, but the lines that form the shape are the same on both sides, so when you fold them across, you get one part. Now that we know our terms, we're going to go ahead and cover the congruent one too, which is equal measurement, and as you can see, the 3 shapes are all pertaining to each other because they all have the same amount of sides and angles, even though they're not going the same direction. And can anybody tell me how many right angles this shape has? You're correct. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then this one also has 5 as well as this one because they are all congruent. Good job. And angles aren't the only way of measuring. If they're equal, you can also go off by the sides. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 sides, as well as this one and as well as this one, which causes them to be congruent. Good job. Now that we have our terms and shapes covered, we'll go ahead and begin. You all are given a 6" by 6" piece of paper. And for starting, we're going to lay it down and form a diamond. And we're going to fold our diamond in half. We're going to take the left corner to the right corner and form a line of symmetry for our origami project. Just like that, it's folded in half. And we are given a triangle, but it's not a scalene triangle because these two match up. Now, moving on, we'll leave it open to continue to the next step. And the next step is to fold the two sides inward to meet the center fold, or the line of symmetry that we just covered. So we'll start with the left side, and we're just going to fold this side and have it line up with our line of symmetry. Once you have it lined up, we'll go ahead and crease it, and then we'll continue to the other side as well. Once you have them folded across, your paper will begin to look like this. And how many triangles can you guys see before we continue on? Correct. There's one right here and one right here, but together they form a bigger triangle, so there are 3. And then continuing to the bottom, there's one, this blue one right here. And then across the line of symmetry, there's also another one because they are congruent. There's 2, and together we have 3. But looking even bigger, on one line of the symmetry, there's one triangle, which forms a scalene triangle, correct? And then on the opposite side of the line of symmetry, there's another one. So we'll continue on. And we already have talked about this, that we have 1, 2, and together 3, and then 4, 5, together 6, and then 7, together this big one, that forms our scalene, and 8. But however, we haven't talked about pairs of triangles. So how many pairs of triangles do we have that we just counted off? Right, we have 1 because there's 2 inside, and then 2, and then 3. Good job. Now that we've talked about the pairs of the triangles, let's go ahead and continue on our steps, and we'll go ahead and fold the tip along the line of symmetry down to the bottom, just like this. Good job. Now that we have that together, we'll go ahead and fold our origami paper along the line of symmetry to go ahead and form a new shape that we have just covered. Does anybody know what kind of shape we just created by folding along our line of symmetry? Correct. We just created a quadrilateral because there are 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides. Now that we've formed our quadrilateral, we'll follow along with step 5, and it says rotate the shape so that the long flat line is at the bottom. So we're going to have this as our bottom, and we're going to give our little whale a tail by just folding the tip of it up, straight up, just like this. And then we're going to fold the little tip over so he has a little tail. And just like that, our whale has his own tail. And then from your crown box, we're going to grab our black markers, and we'll add a little eye for him so he can see all the other fish in the sea, and a little smile because we have a cheery whale. And just like that, we created our wonderful whale. And after creating step 6, we'll continue on to the end of the presentation. So after reviewing the shapes that we've talked about, we have our line of symmetry, and then our quadrilateral. That's not so much of a quadrilateral with the tail. But now that we have covered the shapes, such as the scalene triangle, the quadrilateral, the square, and the triangle, you guys are free to move on to your homework that will be covering the wonderful whale that we just made. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be free to help them. Otherwise, you guys can move on to your homework. Good job, and we'll continue tomorrow.